Hello, everyone. I'm Tanya Rivero. Elaine is off tonight. Thank you for joining us for our final Red and Blue of the year. It comes as Congress finally passes much-needed aid for the country just before the remaining key benefits were set to expire. $600 checks for those who reported less than $75,000 of income on last year's taxes could come as early as next week. The package also includes 10 more weeks of a $300 unemployment bonus, money for COVID-19 testing and vaccine distribution, and funds to hopefully keep renters in their homes. More on that coming up. But economists are warning this won't be enough. Cities and states are on the verge of fiscal insolvency, and this deal does not address that. President-elect Joe Biden is already talking about another round of aid when he takes over in 30 days.
This bill is just the first step, a down payment, in addressing the crises, more than one that we're in. There's a lot more work to do. Early next year, I'm going to put forward to the Congress my plans for what comes next. Unemployment's extended for another 10 weeks. It's going to take a lot longer than that. But Congress did its job this week. And I can and I must ask them to do it again next year. But even with the changes in approach I'm going to put in place in late January, people are still going to be getting sick and dying from COVID. Our darkest days in the battle against COVID are ahead of us, not behind us.
Skyler Henry and Liz Goodwin join me now. Skyler covers all things out of Washington for CBS News and joins us from Capitol Hill. And Liz is the Deputy Washington Bureau Chief for the Boston Globe. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here. Liz, it took 9 months and several thousand more coronavirus deaths for Congress to pass the latest relief package. President-elect Biden will have 11 days after inauguration before eviction protections expire. So is he, and should he be, confident he can get something done?
Yes, Biden sounded very confident today. He even said that this passage of the bill kind of proved him right all along, because as he was running for president, a lot of people, especially on the left, were kind of questioning his faith in the fact that Republicans would work with him, would help him get things done. And so today he really took a victory lap on that and said, look, they did pass relief. You know, I'm right. I can get them to do this again. But as you said, this took 9 months. This was such a slog. Democrats and Republicans were trillions of dollars apart at the very beginning. Democrats wanted a $2.4 trillion bill. It ended up at $900 billion. And a lot of the priorities closest to Democrats' heart, especially aid, state and local aid, things that, you know, end up in salaries for policemen, teachers, did not make it in this bill. And that's something that Biden is definitely going to ask for. As he said, the unemployment's only extended for 10 weeks. He doesn't believe that's going to be enough given the unemployment crisis right now. And it's unclear if you look at what happened. You know, on the one hand, it's a hopeful thing that this did get done eventually, but unemployment expired last summer. So Congress was perfectly willing to have Americans suffer for those 6 months while they kind of bickered over this. And it's you know, it's unclear if they're going to be able to get this done again so quickly.
And of course, Skyler, now everyone's diving into the fine print, and there's a lot of fine print here to dive into. The Washington Post is reporting the bill contains tens of billions in special interest tax giveaways, with the electric motorcycle and beer industries emerging as some of the biggest winners. CBS News' Money Watch team notes it includes a tax break for business meals, which is being derided as a 3-martini lunch deduction. So this 5,000-plus page bill was voted on the same day it came out. Is this typically how legislation gets done?
Well, Tanya, the short answer is no, but lawmakers expressed their concerns about the amount of time that they would have to actually go over this bill as it was rolling out yesterday. We saw Senator Mike Lee, one of the more vocal lawmakers, who came out to say that there was simply not enough time to properly vet this bill in order to make a educated vote on the bill before they had time to do so. And I think that that was something that was also expressed on the other side of the aisle. We saw the Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have similar rhetoric in talking about this is one of the largest bills in U.S. history in terms of the amount of money being talked about here, and so that they felt as though there needed to be much more time in order to properly fine-tooth comb this bill, if you will. But I think that just kind of speaks to kind of the level of severity we were at here on Capitol Hill in terms of lawmakers really at a stalemate for the last 8 or 9 months and talking about another round of coronavirus relief here. And so when you take in all of that into consideration, we did see some lawmakers yesterday vote no on this bill. Now, I mentioned Mike Lee. We also saw Senators Rand Paul and Ted Cruz vote no on this bill as well. But also interesting to note that we saw Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib vote no to this as well, saying that this is essentially a slap in the face to all Americans and that we're going to be right back here in a month or so talking about how to extend this coronavirus relief to Americans and really seeing how long it took, to Liz's point, how long it took to get to this point. No matter, we really don't know how long it will take to see another coronavirus relief bill, but we know that that bipartisan group of lawmakers hopes that this is really the framework here, if you will, to kind of build off of moving forward, as well as the president-elect optimistic about what we can perhaps see in the next month or two.
All right, and Liz, we are now less than a month away from inauguration on January 20th, but President Trump is showing no indication of conceding defeat. What is the latest with his attempts to overturn election results once Congress convenes to count Electoral College votes?
Trump is still gathering, allies who are willing to still fight with him on this, and lodging his objections. He's been hoping to convince lawmakers to vote against the Electoral College confirmation, which is largely a symbolic thing that happens every election. Most Americans don't even generally tune in or even probably realize that Congress does confirm the Electoral College tally. He has some people in his orbit that his campaign and lawyers have tried to push out, such as Sidney Powell, kind of on speed dial. He's talking to them. He's still trying to sort through his options, but he essentially doesn't have any options right now. So I think a lot of this is just kind of a sideshow that's going to play itself out. I don't know if the president will ever be ready to concede or let it go, but there's just not that much he can really do at this point.
And Skyler, President Trump just announced the appointment of a handful of loyalists to government posts. Who made the cut? And is the timing of such an announcement at all unusual?
Well, it's not unusual. We saw President Obama do something similar during the latter part of his second term in terms of appointing some of his closest aides to posts here. But it is significant in that typically when something like this happens, it's a sign, if you will, that a president is acknowledging that his time at the White House is coming to an end here. But we saw that people who were close to his 2016 campaign, people like Corey Lewandowski, are going to be appointed to the Pentagon's Defense Business Board. We also saw that Andrew Giuliani, who is the president attorney Rudy Giuliani's son, he was appointed to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum's board as well. So these are certain things, certainly prestigious, if you will. What's important to note that these are not paid positions. They do not require any sort of Senate confirmation in order to do so. But still, though, there is a little bit of pushback in saying that members or who have been appointed to these boards aren't necessarily qualified to be on them. We should also note that the president-elect, should he see fit, could always decide to replace any of the president's appointees at any given time, given that they do not necessarily have term limits or anything else like that. But this is more so one of those things where it's just like a thank you for all that you've done. Let me put you somewhere that is relatively prestigious and also one of the institutions in and around the district.
Right, that may or may not last. All right, so Liz, I also want to ask you about the criticism of lawmakers who are getting early priority for the coronavirus vaccine, many of whom downplayed the virus's danger, like Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. So what is the rationale for members of Congress jumping to the front of the line for vaccines?
Yeah, so Joni Ernst's vaccination, I think, in particular is controversial just because she did embrace a conspiracy theory saying that perhaps doctors were in some way profiting off of falsely inflating COVID deaths. So that's, very obviously harmful thing to say while public health officials are trying to contain the spread. And then she did, get a vaccine. And on the one hand, I think public health officials are happy to see public officials, posting pictures of themselves getting vaccines and trying to, push back on some of the disinformation around that and hopefully spread awareness about the benefits of a vaccine. On the other hand, the vaccine's incredibly scarce right now. There's frontline workers who are treating COVID patients who are not vaccinated right now. And I think that is driving some of this anger that you're talking about. In terms of why senators or members in general are getting it early, it's a continuity of government rationale. If you imagine, say, there had been an outbreak a couple days ago in Congress and they didn't have a quorum to pass this funding bill, and then maybe, there would have been a government shutdown, people wouldn't be getting their paychecks. No one really wants that to happen. So there is kind of a national security, continuity of government reason to have these people vaccinated. But at the same time, just given how scarce the vaccines are right now, that is sparking a backlash.
Well, Liz Goodwin and Skyler Henry, thanks to both of you for joining us.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you.